Joining me this morning for his regular visit from the Farmington Municipal School District, Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Eugene Schmidt is here, and he has brought some special guests with him. Dr. Schmidt, good morning. Welcome back. Good to have you here.
Yeah, good morning, Scott, and happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday to you, too. And this is one of our few remaining visits, you and I together, so I look forward to each and every one of them, as I always have. So thank you for being here. You have brought some guests with you this morning, and so we want to introduce them to our audiences as well. First of all, the new superintendent for the Farmington School District, Mr. Cody Diehl, is here. Mr. Diehl, good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
In this capacity.
Thank you. Good morning. Yes, I've been before, but not in this capacity, obviously, and thanks for having me.
You bet. Good to have you here. Also, Nate Pierontoni is here, and we welcome you. You have a long title at Farmington Schools. You are the Director of School Improvement, Data, and Assessment. Good to have you here as well.
Thanks, Scott. Great to be here.
Welcome back. And so, Dr. Schmidt, we'll start by talking a bit about the transition. As you have announced your retirement, of course, and so Cody Diehl has been selected by the Farmington School Board to be the next superintendent.
Yes. Mickey Mantle loved the number 7, and it has been with that same delight that I've enjoyed these 7 years as superintendent at Farmington Municipal Schools, and go out being very proud of what our team has accomplished, and through the most interesting of times.
That's one way to say it.
We look in that rear view, that Lubbock in the rearview mirror song that some country western people sing, but we forget almost that, we had 2 years of pandemic and virtual learning, and who would have thought, back in 2015 when they say, Gene, welcome to town. Oh, by the way, in about 3 years, you're going to be having a pandemic. And so it's a very interesting year. I'm excited because, again, Mr. Pierontoni is here later to talk about testing and assessment, but we as a district grew right through pandemics and disasters and grew as a district. And so I leave and I give the district to Mr. Diehl with confidence that we are in a good place. And when you're in a good place, good things will continue to happen. So I'm excited for Cody. I'm excited for the work that Nate is doing, and really anxious to celebrate those things with our community today.
Very, very true. And, of course, to be clear, too, Mr. Diehl has had his fingers a little bit in the workings of the Farmington School District, even under your leadership as well, prior to him taking over, correct?
Yes, and I would say that there's so much to celebrate in the work that he brings and the leadership experiences, because life in Central, life in Bloomfield, life in Farmington, here's a guy that knows the four corners and knows enough about the four corners that I think will bring great leadership ideas to the future of education, not only for Farmington, but all of the four corners, and I suspect New Mexico as well.
Very good. Well, Mr. Diehl, let me bring you into the conversation some more again to talk about your selection as the new superintendent. Dr. Schmidt has some fairly big shoes to fill, I would say. But again, as he mentioned, you've got a lot of experience here in the county, in the region, with the Farmington School District, of course. And so it sounds to me like, and I think the board saw it too, that you've got the skills that are needed to keep moving the district forward and keep on with some of the progress that Dr. Schmidt has made.
Well, thank you, and I want to thank the school board, Farmington Municipal Schools, and certainly Dr. Schmidt. I've been with Dr. Schmidt all 7 years, and part of his team in some capacity, and I appreciate everything that he's done for me. He's allowed me to grow. He's given me reins to make decisions and be part of his team and continue. So I'm committed to what he's done. I'm committed to what his teams have done, and I'm committed to our district. So I look forward to all the things that he just discussed about being good things, enhancing them, and growing.
Very good, very good. And keeping some of these things that we've been seeing that have been working so well. I mean, there are a lot of kudos, I think, about graduation rates that we have talked about here on this program. Those retention rates, those testing scores and things that we'll be talking about as well. But Farmington's gotten a lot of kudos, both nationwide and statewide, for the work that students have done and teachers have done with those students, and so that can continue, correct?
Absolutely, and it's a people business, and we have really good people in our system. The Mr. Pierontonis of the world and the teams that have been built around Dr. Schmidt, his cabinet, our cabinet, and the leadership team, our instructional focus team, and most importantly, our community, our students, and our teachers are committed to the work that we're doing, and you see the results.
Right. Well, and that's the important thing, too. I think we are seeing the results, and parents are seeing the results, and so I think they understand maybe the reasons behind some of these things that are being pushed towards the students and brought into schools and things along that line. Dr. Schmidt, I think you called it the Farmington Method.
Yes, Farmington Way, yes.
Farmington Way, thank you. And so that has proved to be very effective over your tenure here at Farmington Schools.
Yes, and I will add that we celebrate the partners that we have worked with along the way. And we'll be talking about San Juan College in just a little while. But there's a number of people both in the state and the nation that believe in us. And so I'm hoping that when Mr. Pierontoni joins the conversation in a little while, he talks about how important our partnership with the Public Education Department is and what they're doing to help us learn and grow. And in the process, we have built that state and national reputation for which I leave with some celebration today.
Very true. And I would think, too, it's not really, it can't be a cookie-cutter type of approach to education. I mean, our students at Farmington schools maybe learn differently than students in southern New Mexico may learn, or in Washington State learn, or things along that line. And that, I think, is something that maybe has been evolving over the last few years. I almost said devolving, but I meant evolving, because education is evolving and changing as well, and how we reach students and how we teach them. Is that what you have found, Dr. Schmidt?
Yeah, and I'm actually going to let Mr. Pierontoni jump into because he is involved in the testing and the assessment. So would be very curious as to, we have changed teaching strategies. We've become more focused on social emotional learning these last several years, caring about kids, building relationships, trying to understand the relevancy of why do I study, why do I struggle in the learning process. And so we try to make relevant learning problems for our kids. And so Mr. Pierontoni, would love to have you jump into that. And
sure.
Why are we here?
Well, I would just add, so it isn't new for Farmington teachers because we've followed our Farmington model of instruction for over a decade. And in that model, we really dig into what it means to give strong feedback to our kids, and we use assessment as part of how we provide feedback so that kids can understand where they are in their own learning. That's really important to us. But on the flip side, like Dr. Schmidt acknowledges, we've also had a strong focus on the context of learning, and the pandemic has really pushed us into some new areas for that. So when I say context of learning, I'm talking about the classroom environment, almost the vibe, if you will, where we make learning accessible to all students. We really work to understand students' background, student interest, and then tailor the learning so that it meets them where they're at. And that's something that we've worked towards for many years under the leadership of these gentlemen, but we have kind of a renewed focus on that as well as we are emerging from these last couple of challenging years.
Right. But I guess that reflects back on how things are changing, or how students or how their learning has changed, right? We hear a lot about these kids spend a lot of time on their screens and learning differently than I learned, and maybe you guys learned when you were in school. And it's a different method these days, is it not, than it was 50 years ago, 30 years ago?
Certainly technology has improved how we can sort of deliver content to kids, but some of the core characteristics of, let's call it a Farmington graduate, are the ability to collaborate and the ability to make good decisions and to sort of self-regulate. And so when we think about social and emotional learning, that's what we're talking about. And you can't teach that without putting kids in interactive groups. And so as much as we love our technology, we also love kind of the human side of what it means to be back in a classroom face to face. And so all these things come together, and they really do fall nicely into what we've worked towards for over a decade now in our Farmington model. But I think, as Dr. Schmidt acknowledges, they're more important than ever as we look forward to sort of this bright future ahead of us.
Right. Good to know. And I think parents are excited that their kids are learning and retaining what they've learned and being able to move forward. With that technology, though, can you not dive deeper into maybe some of those assessments and just see how students are doing and subsets of students are doing, and if a certain grade level or subset of a grade level isn't doing as well, provide more resources to those students to bring them where they need to be?
That's absolutely correct. So our technology has enabled us to kind of grow our assessment practices in ways that stretch from what we call formative assessment in the classroom, which is kind of that real-time check, between exit tickets or informal conversations, all the way up through interim and summative assessments. We use these pretty deliberately to do exactly as you described, right? So we're trying to really pinpoint opportunities, whether it be for student populations or schools or grade bands or however we want to kind of slice up our population of students, and then we can target that with resources based on what we learn through those assessments.
Right. Dr. Schmidt?
Yeah, I was going to share that in building what Mr. Pierontoni is sharing is that as we embrace technology as a learning tool, we have had a chance to talk to staff and students about consumers of knowledge. The old joke is that if it's on the internet, it must be true. And so it has given us a chance to help our kids understand that check your sources, verify through different multiple sources before saying that this must be the truth. And so I'm excited about how a new teaching skill is trust but verify, as Reagan used to say. So just go back and do more research to make sure what you're putting into your papers is true. So it's a different kind of a model that I think will help us in the future.
Right. Very true. Well, as a journalist, can we sign some adults up for the Check Your Sources class and maybe spread that out a little bit more too in the community these days? But that's always great advice. Let's talk a bit with Mr. Pierontoni a bit about these assessments that you were talking about. And Dr. Schmidt, you brought in a graphic that kind of explains a bit between formative and summative assessments. And so, can you take us through a little bit about the differences here?
I'd love to, Scott. I think at this time of year, parents and students have, there's a lot happening in the schools around assessment, and it's important for everyone to understand all of these assessments really are in service of learning. This is important to us. Our goal is student success, and we use assessments to not only gauge what our kids have picked up over the course of the year, but it's also a useful tool for our teachers and our leaders. And I wanted to talk about how our teachers benefit from assessment because, especially on the informal side, it's a quick turnaround. We find out exactly what the kids have learned, and teachers are given the opportunity, whether it be in their collaborative teams, those PLCs that meet on Monday afternoons or during the week, if they're in those teams and they're able to reflect on the outcomes of their instruction, then we believe that gives us the ability to make fine adjustments and help improve learning over the course of the entire year. So formative assessment really is what we consider part of great instruction. Formative assessment also helps our leaders, our school leaders, get a broad picture, again with a fast turnaround so that they can make adjustments at the school level and really steer policy for their buildings. So on top of that, we also have summative assessments. And I'll use an analogy from a restaurant, right? If you go to a restaurant and you order a cup of soup, the formative assessment is when the chef tastes the soup, right? Because he can make changes. But the summative is when the customer tastes the soup. It's done. So we take summative assessments in April and May, and those assessments really give us the cumulative look at the standards over the course of the entire year. Now, those results don't come back to us till July or in some cases even later, but those are the results we use to gauge whether our district has maintained a trajectory, whether we are still kind of in the running with other districts, our aspirational peers around the state and around the nation. Those results of the summative really drive decisions at the district and at the state level. So two sides of the same coin, but both in service of learning for our kids.
And both important, I guess, benchmarks, I guess, to be able to look at throughout the school year, correct? For you and your staff and your teachers, too.
Absolutely. We work hard to empower our teachers to use those formative assessment results to make instructional changes kind of in real time.
Right.
That's how we feel we best service our students.
So I will jump in very quickly because Mr. Pierontoni's been schooling me over these last many years on something called a balanced scorecard or a balanced assessment system, where we really do trust the teacher as the first evaluator. The teachers do quick checks. They do things called entry and exit tickets, just walking around the room looking at the work that kids are doing. So when Nate talks about we do these tests, but would also like to have maybe Cody talk about how we value the teacher in the learning process as that first evaluator.
Cody, Diehl?
Yeah, absolutely. Our teachers have the closest relationship with the student. They know the backgrounds of the students, where they're coming from, and so they are the first layer of support in learning. So we value them and their expertise, absolutely, but more so with the relationships that they have built with their students.
Very true. Very good. Good to know. Well, Dr. Schmidt, let me go back and talk a bit about your appearance here at San Juan College last week. You and I were at an event together, and I was honored to be at that signing day event, which celebrated local high school students who were deciding to come here to San Juan College in the fall for the next level of their education, this National Signing Day, the first event of its kind here at San Juan College. But you were asked to say a few words, and it was pretty impressive to see all those high school students on our stage.
Yes, and I will say that once again it shows that San Juan College is innovative, they're creative, and recognize that there are many ways to value children. In this case, we were honoring graduates who will be signing to go to the San Juan College career and technical programs. I want to say they had at least 52 kids from around the county, including a sizable number of Farmington Municipal school students, but it was fun just celebrating career and tech on a day that other universities were celebrating the signing of athletes. And so it just made you feel good that here are kids, you know, some who struggle, some who maybe have a different life career path that they want to get into the work world. And we have San Juan College that embraces those students, finds a place, and sets them up for a lifetime of success. And so I will share that what makes the fun is the people you get to be there with. And I really enjoyed your time on the stage as the MC, and again, I appreciate the fact that Dr. Pendergrass trusted me with a few words to celebrate the kids from around the county. But it just is a feel-good moment when, as if you're on the viewing side of this show, there's a picture of the kids putting on their San Juan College hats.
Right.
And what a visual moment that is for the success and future of these kids.
Well, they were kind of treated like these big-time athletes are, right, when they signed their letters of intent to go play on a certain team. And so they all had letters to sign and saying they were intending to come to San Juan College. They all had a San Juan College hat in front of them and a bag of other goodies from the college. And so I think they appreciated that.
Yeah, a bag full of swag is a cool bit of business for kids to, proudly wear their San Juan College T-shirts in public and be seen in their new baseball caps. And a number of these kids were scholarship, which is another fun story. So go on to your San Juan College website and make sure you look up this story. But it just was a delight, Scott, to walk up on the stage after you were talking and then share a few words about our belief as a community in the success stories of these kids.
Well, thank you. It's always great to share the stage with you and the others that were there as well. The kids got a lot of great information from all the speakers that were there, and I just helped move things along, so I didn't say all that much. But want to talk briefly about redistricting, right, in
Yes.
Farmington schools this morning?
Yeah, there's just a lot going on. We're involved in academics. We certainly love the sports successes of our program. The fact that our kids are choosing San Juan College as their preferred post-secondary school, but there's also a lot of work going on. The board just approved a redistricting process, so I'm hoping that if there's somebody out there in the visual world, do the English grammar for me, because I'm wondering how many different definitions of principles there are. But it's built around when you redistrict, and by census law, every 10 years you must revisit the proportionality, equal distribution of citizens in a school board member district. And so we evaluated 3 different ways to redistribute population. We came up with what we call the minimal plan, Plan A, in which just a couple of precincts were moved. And so if you're from 26 and 29 and part of 19, you were shifted into other areas.
These are the voting precincts in San Juan County that you're talking about.
And so when I think about 26 and 29, I think about Brookside Park, the backside maybe, and 19, I think about the Bisti, the nappy. But we made some adjustments to those precincts and reestablished a, by federal definition, has to be a plus or minus of 5%. And so that tells us how equally we can redistribute. But it was fun going through the process. This will take us 10 years into the future for how they vote in the community for their school board members. So,
Right.
so good for us. We did our diligence and followed federal law and got the job done.
This is the plan that's been adopted, right? This
That
is
is
the map that folks will be working under now for the next decade,
That
what
is
what
correct.
you're saying. And each district is roughly about, as you mentioned, plus or minus 5% at about 11,500 people or so. That's
Yeah,
kind of what you've tried to
Yeah,
do.
somewhere in that window of 11.7 to about 12.3.
Right. Thank you. Yes, that's what we can see. So there you have it for the Farmington schools, for the districts. Other notice we want to talk about this morning, some budgets. It's budget season, of course. So what does that look like for the new year?
I'm going to put the pressure on Cody because this is his budget. And
Okay.
I'll do the filler if Cody wants to talk first.
All right, Mr. Diehl. A lot of money.
I'll
A lot
say
of money.
it-
A lot of money.
It's a lot about kids.
A lot of students. A lot. I mean, we know that the school district is an economic driver in our community, provides a lot of great paying jobs and things along that line. And so that's where these numbers come from, right?
Yeah, and I really appreciate the process and the focus on students and keeping money in the classroom as much as possible. We have a process where we bring people together to determine how we spend our money, and I think overall we've done a really good job. Dr. Schmidt continues the focus of putting students first, and that's what we'll continue to do.
So I'll jump in a little bit by saying that we talked about technology earlier. A big part of this is technology in that we are officially ramping up a virtual program, grades 6 through 12. You're going to see a number of people, staff employed to become a virtual program teachers, and we'll house that at the Kate Center. Kids will come in for support as they need, instruction from teachers, but we will continue to honor those voices that began to like learning from home. So we will continue that into this next budget. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about the focus on fine arts. You're going to see every school, elementary has fine arts teachers. We're adding that across the district. We're adding extra elective teachers at the high school. Farmington High, the locals, with almost 1,900 kids. That's a full balloon. And so we're adding staff at those places where numbers and enrollment are growing. But this is a budget that, as Mr. Diehl has shared, really is intended to continue to support our belief that the best place to place money is in the classroom, or as close we can get it to kids. So you'll see in this budget additional social, emotional support. Just a lot of nice things in this budget that says we are in it for the kids. The big deal, Scott, is that we are like 120 years of Farmington Municipal Schools. The first time ever that the budget has gone over $100 million. And think about that as a community. I've been here like 7 years, and I think it was like 70 million just a few short years ago. Now we are over $104 million investing in the education of our children. It's a wonderful statement. We talked about career and tech kids.
Right, sure.
There's money in this budget for that. We are expanding our welding programs, our auto shop programs. We're looking to expand our media programs. We have some wonderful things going on for Scorp Radio, and Haley Bassing runs a kind of a mini TV media program at PV. So there's just a lot of energy going into career tech as well. So this is a school district that welcomes them all. And, we want all kids to be successful.
Right, and major investments, too, in your people, right? I mean, HR and your salaries is a big part of any budget, I would think, for your employees. And we know teachers are being rewarded with higher base salaries from the state level, and other state employees, educational employees, getting another salary increases as well this next year. That's part of this budget, too, right?
Yeah, absolutely, and we've appreciate the fact that the state values what our teachers and our staff and our administrators are doing. Something else that we saw in the graphic is our coaching increases. And so
Right.
our coaches and sponsors spend a lot of time with our students, and our district athletic director, Isaac Gamboa, has done a nice job of bringing us up with the rest of the county and the state. So yes, a lot of value to our people who are with our 11,000 students every day.
Right.
So I'll tease Mr. Pierontoni because he's what we call fourth floor, and Cody and I are first floor, but Nate's fourth floor. But maybe Nate can explain just how many coaches, facilitators, support people we send out into the schools from central office.
So I know each of our many of our programs, whether they be multicultural, whether they be our special education programs, they have kind of a core of teachers who have left the classroom but then are in support of classroom teachers, and they go out and they work with all teachers across all of our schools, from pre-K all the way up through high. And these facilitators really kind of help spread the message, help keep the consistency and the high reliability across all of our buildings. They also really kind of grease the wheels of the policies and make sure that we're ensuring that they're being implemented with fidelity in the classrooms. So when Cody speaks of coaches, we of course have athletics and arts and all the different programs that we run, but we also invest in coaching our teachers and in coaching our leaders through leadership development and facilitators across our different curricular programs.
Got you. And that's got to be important as things are changing. And as I said, I keep going back to that word evolving, but as things are changing and new things being rolled out, new philosophies and those types of things for your teachers to kind of be knowing that they have the support of additional training or help from the district level.
All of us work to ensure that we carry this growth mindset, and so everyone's continually improving and growing, and that requires attention. And we don't just assume that it happens; we plan for it to happen.
So if I can jump in ahead, 2 other levels of support. San Juan College, once again, go online and learn about this school because they do teacher fellowships, there's teacher residencies. They've just come up with just a passel of different ways to, if you want to come in from the outside as a second career, look for what San Juan College is doing to create pathways to come work at Farmington. So look at that, and maybe if Cody and Nate will talk about the public education department has somehow sustained leadership development that we have partnered in. So RISE or something that our community would be interested in. And
Sure. Cody Diehl?
Yeah, so Priority Schools Bureau, we've partnered with them for many years in support of our leaders and new leaders in our district, along with continual growth for our leaders. We have support, as Mr. Pierontoni said, through his department, along with Mr. Harasik. I've been in 3 districts in this county, and the way Farmington Municipal Schools supports our people is amazing.
yeah, in leadership development.
And not only leadership development, but all the way down to the classroom and how we coach our people and support more than anything.
Right, right.
And I'll
Good to
say,
know.
yes, Scott, staff loves the new wages they're about to be
Well, I'm sure they would,
turning
yeah.
in the new school year because the state, it's a good time for New Mexico as a state. Oil and gas, we love it. And they have produced just barrels full of money that we have put into public education, and that is translated into a $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 what I would call living wages that are important, and all other staff 7% across the board. So it's an exciting time that the state of New Mexico, we thank our legislators for honoring teachers and educators as professionals. It's the future is bright. And the legislature and gas and oil has helped us get there.
Very good. Well, and nice to see, because I know we've had conversations some years when the future was maybe not so bright when the budget picture came out. And so it certainly is nice to be able to talk about it in this environment as opposed to the other. We just have a couple of minutes remaining, everyone. Dr. Schmidt, I know you've got a busy schedule because you'll be at many graduations in Farmington schools over the next few weeks.
Yeah, it's going to be a great end of the school year as San Juan College High School opens the door on the 13th of May with a Friday night ceremony, and then very quickly we go to Piedra Vista, Farmington High, Rosinante, all just in a week's time that we will celebrate close to 900 graduates walking out the door. And it just makes you so proud of the stories that each of these graduates will have.
A great celebration. And as we mentioned before we all came on the air this morning, being back in person to celebrate these things together is another thing to note, I think, for this year as well. Again, after last year. So, gentlemen, thank you for coming in this morning and talking about all the work that you do at Farmington Schools. We really appreciate it all the time. Dr. Schmidt, again, our times together are getting down there, but I look forward to our next appearance in May.
Thanks, Scott.
Good to see you. Thank you all very, very much. My guest this morning here on KSJE.